Finally, some legit R&R. This is summer vacation themed Drew. What? But I just started my summer break, do I have to? Oh my god. Okay, fine, but I'm doing what I want to do. Alright, let's make this one an in and out. The creation of launch titles really interests me. Well, old ones at least. It's not quite as interesting nowadays because consoles don't have any massive limitations on them anymore. Like when we had all that older hardware, we went from 8 bits with 56 colors and 5 sound channels to 16 bits with 256 colors and 8 sound channels. Then there was that big jump to 3D, then more detailed models and real-time effects, and then it started getting less interesting with the jump to HD, and from there graphical leaps have become graphical skips. Today though, we're obviously taking a peek at the 6th generation with a title built to kick off that era for Nintendo. And since I never get to talk about the Mario series, even though it's always been my favorite since I was little, let's talk about a game that doesn't even let you play as Mario at all. Pretty logical progression. Luigi's Mansion is always such a unique title to discuss because when you look at the concept for it, you're definitely gonna squint a little bit, you know? When I was researching the development of this game, a lot of their decisions honestly made sense and the flow of ideas from conception to final product clicked with me. Basically, they wanted to make a game where you explored a house kind of like a Zelda dungeon, and they started out with a Japanese styled house. Then because of the fixed angle where you like stare in through the walls, they changed it to be a dollhouse, which makes sense. A lot of dollhouses are like that so you can see all the details inside. Then they were experimenting with some lighting techniques and they thought, well, wouldn't it be kind of neato if this whole place was all shadowy? So they made it an American haunted house. Okay, well, we have the mansion, but where's the Luigi? That bitch. Well, they were using Mario as the player character at first, but when the Haunted Mansion ghost theme became the focus, they looked at Mario and said, look at how happy this guy is. He's not afraid of any ghosts. Let's kill him. So then they just put Luigi in. See, that all makes sense, right? But when you as a consumer see that Nintendo's new box is coming packaged with a Luigi game instead of a Mario game, that's gonna take people aback a little bit. And yeah, look at these reviews. People were kind of mixed at the time. But this has ended up being a fan fave, so much so that in the past few years it's seen a resurgence and is now a full trilogy of games. But every YouTuber I see reviewing those games always says that they're mixed about the new approach because it's so different from how things were in the first game. So I guess extremely opinionated is the best way to approach this one. Fortunately, I am always extremely opinionated. I have an opinion about everything. Ask me how I feel about chives. Comment, do it now. I played this game for the first time in 2019. I borrowed it from an acquaintance to get ready for LM3, and I remember really enjoying it. I didn't own it though, so I finally collected it for myself when I went to Colorado with some friends around New Year's last year, because I wanted to visit some local game stores and feel out the vibes. I remember enjoying it quite a bit on my second playthrough, despite thinking it had some quirks, so I'm excited to dive back in and see what I think about this game upon another playthrough. I'm Izzy-Doodle, and this is a video about Luigi's Mansion. Dang, before you even get going and start up a new file, this game slams you in the face with how different its atmosphere is. Right from the first note of the title screen music, it's like pew, 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 pew. Like, it's not scary, but it has that spook factor that makes you, like, shiver with delight. This would be perfect for celebrating Halloween. Someone should try and make a video on this around that specific time of the year. You can tell the developers really want to put you into the same headspace as Luigi. Just from the cover, you can see that Luigi's gonna shit his pants no less than 20 times on this adventure, and when you're presented with a scene like this, it's easy to see why. Even just hitting start into the file select screen offers some neato Easter eggs that further establish tone for this adventure. There's some text up in the corner that says welcome to your mansion, but if you wait for a little bit it changes to welcome to our mansion. Ooh. And spoilers, but that really sums up the whole plot of this 3-hour game. When you try to copy a file it says more files means more fear, and when you try to erase a file it says you can erase the files but not the fear. I don't say bleh bleh bleh, I say bleh bleh. There's just so much personality here. I can only hope that it keeps laying it on thick once we actually kick off our playthrough. Holy shit, there's a fucking Pikmin video, holy fuck. Why is the logo weird? Whoever's playing this fucking sucks at Pikmin. They really should have hired me to make this. I don't care anymore. Let's start a new file of Luigi the video game. Oh wow, that really got going, huh? The game starts immediately after selecting a new file. Luigi walks up to the iconic mansion, and to be honest, I have no idea why. This residence looks fucking evil. I guess if I traveled 8 billion miles to see a building that I want, I would probably still check it out, especially if Mario was there. I would feel pretty safe. After poking around in this creepy lobby, a key with a strange floating orange aura, floats by and then falls on the floor with that same aura, orange, beckoning us towards this door. Inside, Luigi almost gets attacked by a ghost, but then gets saved by this little gremlin with a vacuum cleaner. That's Professor Egad, and he's Luigi's little partner for this game. Back at his lab, Luigi and him talk about how Luigi apparently won this mansion in a contest he didn't enter, which is obviously bait. Egad explains that he's literally worked here for 20 years and that mansion only showed up a few days ago. Luigi, hey, listen to him. This is important. He starts paying attention when Egad mentions a guy in red headed there a few days earlier, which means that the ghost got Mario. So Luigi's gotta head in after him using new ghost hunting equipment. Egad sets him up with his Poltergust 3000. Oh wow, you're real proud of that one, aren't you? To suck up ghosts. They show you the controls on this really detailed screen before giving you the chance to practice. They do that because there's a couple different control schemes. In one, you move in a circle like normal, and in the other, you can only rotate Luigi using horizontal movements of the C-stick. I don't have any deep thoughts on this. It's great that there's options, but personally, I'm just used to the regular controls at this point, so I'll stick with them. I also sat on the screen for an eternity because I wanted the Totaka's song Easter egg to trigger. You know, the boop. That ditty that's tucked away in a bunch of Nintendo games that this guy Kazumi Totaka works on, but it never did, so I got bored and moved on. Anyway, now we can actually talk about vacuuming. Here's the combat loop in this game. You shine a ghost in the face using a flashlight to make their heart show up, so you can use that moment of shock to slam the vacuum trigger and suck them up. You need to yank away from them to make their health go down, and if you repeatedly do it, their health will go down even faster. When there's other ghosts around, you get into this frantic game of push and pull trying to keep a sort of combo going without getting hit. And you can potentially grab a bunch of ghosts at once to try and reel them all in, which is a fun challenge. Getting into a ghost fight in this game is exhilarating. Even Egad thinks so. This is definitely the most fun he's had since his wife Ophelia May Gad died in the World 8 fire on Thwomp Volcano. I want to kind of preface this whole video by just owning that I suck major buffalo bunghole at this game. Ghosts are gonna constantly slip away from me or leave before I can start sucking them, so you're just gonna have to accept that this isn't a reality warping, skill stealing, bashing speedrun. I'm not making this review to cameo in a summoning salt video. I'm making a review of all my experiences in my normal old playthrough. Next up, to visit to Egad's gallery. There's nothing to look at here yet, but we'll check back in here later, don't you worry. Here we can ask Egad some more questions about the lore of the Super Mario universe. He says that the gallery used to have a bunch of paintings of ghosts that he had turned them into the paintings. Then King Boo busted them all out and built the mansion. He also tells us he gave us this little device called the Game Boy Horror to phone us whenever he wants and do some other stuff. Yeah, Game Boy Horror, that's cute, huh? The Game Boy Color was still a major deal for Nintendo at the time, if you can believe that, so this is their cute little self-reference. The other Luigi's Mansion games followed suit, with Egad creating the dual Scream in 2 and the Virtual Boo in 3. I bet in the 4th game, Luigi's gonna use a freaking ring fit to stick his nose through. I also like the idea of Egad taking some older hardware and souping it up with useful features. This dude really likes his dad jokes. I think he's a good character. With all that out of the way, let's start Mario hunting. Upon entering the mansion, we meet a crying Toad who asks us to help search for Mario, and upon helping him calm down, he not only offers to save our game like all the Toads will, the lights in the room also come back on. This might seem kinda whatever, who cares at first, but as the possessed paintings in the next room explain, dark rooms are where the ghosts are, and lit rooms are where the safeness is. Basically, throughout the whole game, if you waltz into a dark room, you need to beat all the waves of ghosts before you can progress by turning the lights on. Usually, that means a chest will spawn in containing the key to the next room. This first little stretch of rooms has some examples of enemy waves and introduces 3 types of ghosts for us to get used to. There's the orange ones who only have 10 health and don't do a whole lot. There's the blue ones that hit harder and have 20 health, and there's these green ones that eat bananas and have 40 health. I love these guys. The other ones aren't very offensive when you suck them up, but they also toss bananas after them as you try to suck them up. If you walk over one, you'll slip and lose them, so it starts creating that sort of push and pull I talked about even when they're the only enemy around. There's a lot of other types of ghosts that get introduced later in the game, and even though some of them get a bit overwhelming to deal with, the game stays easy enough that I didn't mind getting dogpiled. Plus, that variety being spliced in constantly in all the normal combat is great. Dealing with waves of ghosts stays fun throughout the whole game. After busting out some dark rooms, we unlock a hallway containing special ghosts, and these are the portrait ghosts. The deal with these guys is that they have personality, and you need to find some sort of unique opening to vacuum them. These first two, the married couple, show the most basic examples of that. The first guy will read his book and then eventually yawn, which is your signal to vor him. Since he's a big reader, we can poke around on his bookshelf and find his wife's diary. Well, you know me, I love hot goss. Let's see here. The twins are very shy for ghosts their age. They've even gone and hid their key to their room far away in the mansion. How very trying. They got mad at me the other day for twirling their little toy helicopter mobile. Ghost children. Ghost children? What the fuck? They're not born ghosts, Lydia. Oh, she's getting vacuumed for that one. Since she's over here brushing her hair like Sleeping Beauty, you need to use the vacuum to suck open the curtains and make a draft that gets her upset. You might be thinking, why couldn't Luigi just grab the curtain and yank it open with his disgusting huge meat hands? He only needs the vacuum for ghosts. Oh, very funny, Miss Let's Play. But you know what? If you had a giant-ass vacuum cleaner, scientific equipment, okay, and it's capable of sucking up paranormal phenomena made real, it has so much suction, you would use it on stupid bullshit too. Don't even lie to yourself. Speaking of that, we can also poke around using that Game Boy Horror's camera. You're supposed to use it to scan the portrait ghosts' hearts to get hints on how to get them, but it's honestly much more fun to pick random stuff around any given room and read Luigi's thoughts. He just spends the whole game roasting the entire place. This game really gave Luigi an identity of his own, and I'm not talking about all the scaredy cat animations. Sure, you can see his fear and nervousness in a lot of obvious ways, but by letting you see his thoughts on any random anything in the mansion, you literally get inside this guy's head. And boy oh boy does he only have 3 brain cells. Ugh, I bet whoever's in there is gonna be actually freaky. I was right. This room features Chauncey the baby and requires us to hit him in the face with a ball, which is priming for his full-on boss fight. He shrinks us down and makes the environment crazy to try and murder us. And the fight isn't difficult, all the bosses are just about not walking into things in this game, but considering most players are probably finishing up getting used to the controls, this boss could be pretty intense since it ratchets up the amount of things in the fight and how fast they are. As for me, I love this fight because of the atmosphere. Chauncey's animations are all stretchy and creepy and matched with a loud, startling sound effect. And the music is just bizarre, bro. I'm so here for that dissonance. Beating him gives us a key to the next major part of the mansion, but since we just fought a huge boss, EGAD calls us back to the lab for a break. Personally, I would have kept going, but maybe that's just my hyperfixating brain talking, so he's probably right. Back at the lab, we use this thing called the Ghost Portraitificationizers. Ugh. Fuck, EGAD, that name is not good. I cannot pronounce that shit. We use it to turn the ghosts back into paintings. I just love how this sequence plays out every time it happens in the game. I mean, let's just take a look at how the music bops along with the pacing of the machine and EGAD's quotes. I don't know, there's just something so entirely iconic about how this is laid out to me. Just such a memorable sequence. Props to whoever directed it. The second area of the mansion really lets us loose to explore a more fleshed out area of the house. We'll catch a bunch more portrait ghosts and deal with more waves of enemies, including some new ones, but what I want to focus on first is how we can use the poltergeist for exploration. The name of the game here is Sucking, Blowing, and Humping. But hey, stop giving me the fucking rock face and just listen to me for a second. You use the vacuum, okay? And you use it to shake stuff around to get treasure to pop out of it. That's all I meant. If it lets out a puff of dust, there's nothing in it, and if a bunch of cash drops out of it, then there there was probably something in there, but it's kind of hard to tell. Okay, pervs, there's nothing sexual about it. I don't know what to say about Luigi humping stuff though. That's pretty sussy. I like it better when he knocks on walls like someone's gonna answer. Fucking dumbass. Using the vacuum to hunt for treasure is a lot of fun. Coins are a staple of the Mario series, and I'm sure using the vacuum to suck them up and collect them naturally led to the idea of having them pop out of the furniture and to incorporate different types of money for different situations. Coins are the regular currency, and you'll drop a couple every time you get hit. Dollar bills flitter around the room and can be harder to suck up. Pearls are like coins, but you can get a bunch of them for hanging onto the portrait ghosts, and there are rubies, sapphires, emeralds, and diamonds that you can get as a reward for winning optional fights that result in tons of cash. I don't like when they drop a ton of those because Luigi plays this animation every time he picks one up, so you might see it up to 3 or 4 times in a row, which is definitely the most distractingly video gamey thing of all time. All this treasure is used to slowly give you a rank for your playthrough, with a bunch of different mansions being your reward for how much cash you nabbed. It offers some very arcadey replay value where you might try to get a better high score each time you play. This game obviously goes on for longer than any arcade game, but I would agree with the game itself in that I think it does have a bit of replay value as a result of the treasure. I think it's a cute idea, and the amount of treasure fits the mansion setting like Mario's glove. And now a poem. A couple of rooms into Area 2, Luigi accidentally lets out all the boos. King Boo, a new character in this game, commands an army of 50 boos that hold power over the mansion. There's one boo hidden in every room that you can collect. There's 50 in total. You only need 40 to reach the final boss though, but at that point you're close enough to completing that objective, you may as well just go grab the other 10. How do you go about hunting for boos though? Well, the Game Boy Horror has a little tracker on it. Normally it's blue, but in a room where a boo is hiding, the light will start blinking yellow so you can play hot and cold, with it turning red whenever you're super close. Then you can use the vacuum on whatever object is getting it to flash to get them to pop out. Sometimes they like to fuck with you by making a bomb or ball pop out instead, which is kind of cute, but it gets grating after a while. Either have more fake out gimmicks or use them less. You pick one, game. Once the boo is out in the open, you gotta suck them up, obviously. I'm just over explaining this because you're a childish creature, unlike me. They don't do the whole push and pull thing though. Sucking them up with the vacuum cleaner just chips away at their health slowly, so you have to follow them around the room and stay on their asses to get them. Catching a boo is really satisfying because it's more of a struggle and you get rewarded by immediately getting to save. It's a great system that gives every room in the mansion some revisitability, besides the occasional secret or Easter egg. There's just one problem. They can float through the fucking walls. This won't cause you any grief when they have low health amounts like 50 or 80 for the first few, but the second they get up to 100 or even 300 by the end of the game, there's an almost 100% chance they'll slip away, so you'll have to follow them through multiple rooms most of the time. This gets obnoxious in the hallways because you'll only have the chance to lower their health by like a single digit before they get away again. And there are some situations where the room they head into is in the most inconvenient position of all time, and you'll have to slog through a couple other rooms with silly little funny awesome gimmicks only for them to get away again. And that's assuming it's not even locked. I just don't get it. Why'd they let that happen? I can imagine a few fixes. One, don't let the boos leave rooms and make them more aggressive instead of having them run away like a tiny mini boss in each room. 2, set fucking bounds on where the boos can go. If they're gonna go through walls, they really should have some sort of logic in place to keep boos from entering inconvenient rooms. Bounds for each one to keep them within a logical range. The best case scenario would probably be some mix of the two. A third thing to add on to this would be to only let them leaving the current room be a result of your failure to catch them. Like if you're fighting one, let Luigi getting hit by one of their attacks or totally losing his vacuuming combo cause them to giggle and leave as a punishment, but only as a punishment, so they can't immediately get away from you. Obviously this isn't a perfect solution all on its own, and all 3 of those points would need some ironing out to make the boos the most fun possible. What's currently in the game is a cute idea, but has lots of little problems that end up making it far less enjoyable by the end. At the very least, they all have cute one-liners, I guess. Every boo has a stupid pun name and a joke to go with it, so it's fun to at least make them pop out for that. It's another great way this game makes its huge sense of personality apparent. But yeah, by the end, it's worn out its welcome as a feature. Another feature introduced in this area that I'm mixed on is the elemental metals. In this area we get fire and water, and later on we get ice, but I'm not wasting my time, I'm talking about them all at once. Once you get a metal, you can suck up elemental ghosts that represent the 3 elements, then blow them to interact with stuff in other ways besides I love the idea of using other things besides just the vacuum to solve puzzles, but what's here isn't really super fleshed out. The fire only gets used to burn things or light candles, the water only gets used to put out fires and water these plants for extras, and the ice just freezes things. That sounds like a bullshit complaint, but that's a fine puzzle for like a platformer or something. For this action-adventure game, I'd like for those puzzles to have a little more depth, and the thing about the elemental metals is that they just can't have any because you can only use one at a time. It's fine to have some basic puzzles. Lighting stuff on fire or freezing things or watering plants are cute implementations that show the mechanic's potential, but being able to cycle between all the elements somehow could allow for far more dynamic and interesting puzzles. The portrait ghost puzzles in this part of the game still stay charming and enjoyable though. The characters get sillier here and there's more of them, so that makes sense. Probably the most boring is the dancing couple because as far as I can tell, you just need to wait until their heart shows up before you vacuum them up together. I think the original music and their dancing couple archetypes still make them memorable characters though. The butler is one of the few times this game has a long thoughtful puzzle because it's one of the few portrait ghosts that requires a ton of setup to capture. You need to get the fire medallion, which requires unlocking this mirror room and clearing it. Then you need to clear this laundry room and unlock the room below it. And once you do both those things, you can light this candlestick that's been floating around in the hallway, causing the butler to freak out and float into that room, and then you can capture him. This puzzle's probably the most complex in the game, and it's awesome for that. This guy, Mr. Lugs, is one of the optional portrait ghosts, and I know that because you get a chest full of cash for catching him instead of a key. He also has a more complex puzzle where you need to vacuum his little servers up so he runs out of food. After that, he gets boring because you just need to dodge his attacks and take the time to vacuum him up. He's not very interesting in my opinion, but I really like the puzzle leading up to his fight. Probably my favorite portrait ghost in this section is Melody Pianissima, purely because her whole deal is just a bunch of fan service for classic Mario music, which of course I'm gonna be a little biased sucker for. To get her to appear, you have to tap on every instrument in the room, which causes a cover of the Mario Brothers theme to fade in, after which she fades in. My name is Melody. People call me the spectral beauty of the ivory keys.
Nobody calls you that.
She then plays a little piano ditty, one of two. She'll either play the water theme from Mario Brothers 1 or the athletic theme from Mario 3. My favorite part is that she'll ask you what game it's from, or more specifically, she may also ask you what situation the composer had in mind for the song. If you get it right, then you can vacuum her up. I would criticize this fan service for being too on the nose, but to be honest, I don't really care. The weakest ghost in this area, and one of the weaker ones in the game, is the dog. The solution is so stupid that every time I replay this game, my jaw drops to the floor because I'm left dumbfounded by how much of a knot puzzle it is. My personal instinct is always to fill his water dish to distract him. That's the only thing I can feasibly imagine the player doing. But in actuality, you just have to wait for a skeleton to show up so you can use one of his bones to distract him. This scripted sequence has no charm because the player doesn't trigger anything. If I had to unearth the skeleton somehow, sure, but I just have to wait for the game to tell me what to do instead of searching for the solution myself. But speaking of the skeleton, there are some new types of ghosts in this area that I want to talk about. Namely, there's these ghosts that like to sneak up behind you and will grab you if you don't flash them first. I like that idea, especially when there's multiple ghosts around. Makes things nice and frantic. They also introduce icy ghosts that you need to burn before you can fight them, which is a good way to introduce elemental elements into the combat. That's another reason that they should have been permanent upgrades though, so the combat could take better advantage of that idea, but oh well. That criticism ship has criticism sailed. The skeletons will toss their bones at you as ammo, nothing too special, but they do stick out from the general aesthetic the other ghosts all use, so that makes them a little special. That part where you have to fight them in the graveyard is really tedious though. At the end of this section is this massive tombstone that unleashes a goo ghost named BOGMIRE. I love Luigi's reaction to this guy. It sets him up as something to actually be kind of scared of. Unfortunately, the fight is boring. I don't hate the idea of it that you need to use the gloop clones to make him solid before you can vacuum him up, but it never evolves. From the start of this fight, you're grabbing the clones and waddling towards him, and at the end of the fight, you're grabbing the clones and waddling towards him. There's no variation, and it's a big letdown for me. Although I guess all the boss fights in this game are like that, huh? After a pit stop at the ghost portraiticate... the Ghost Portraitificationizer, we can now head to the next area. But the thing is, this area really makes me question why this stuff is split into areas. It made sense in the first two areas because they stuck to, you know, one area of the mansion, but this next area starts out on the first floor, goes up to the second floor, makes you skedaddle over to a different part of the second floor that you actually explored in area 1, then does like 2 rooms of the third floor before the boss encounter. Not that there's anything wrong with a little exploration in this action adventure, but with how long it takes to cross some of these areas, I just get freaking tired. It's been a hot minute since any video game made me want to close my eyeballs, but I got close here. Just put in an elevator or something. I know there's that secret where you can take a picture of a mirror to get warped back to the entrance of the mansion, but that is not nearly enough for me. Let me get some freaking shortcuts. Make them secrets even, I don't care. But I'm poking around every inch of this place anyway, so let me find some connections between where I'm at and other places. Knocking on pots is fun and all, but some secret passages that aren't just for secret treasure rooms would really add to the Haunted Mansion vibe, I think. I'm kind of over the linear progression at this point. You know how in classic Resident Evil you get keys that aren't usually just for one door? Like any door that matches the symbol on your key can be unlocked? They really should have implemented something similar here for more non-linear progression if you ask me, which you kind of indirectly did because you clicked on the video. Honestly, you could do it exactly like RE and have a symbol on the doors that matches the next area key, or maybe color code the keys and have all the doors painted different colors to add that element of environmental observation. Really, anything would have been better for this game's replay value than go here now, bleep bloop. Although I will say, even though they are getting tougher to the point where I'm getting a bit frustrated, the portrait ghosts are staying varied. Personally, I'd have to say I don't like a lot of the ghosts in this area, but I guess it does make sense that they'd really be fucking with you out of desperation at this point. Then again, maybe trying to vacuum up a yarn ball with the worst collision of all time is stupid. I mean, maybe not. But then again, maybe having to randomly pick 2 boxes correctly and having to wait for this super slow billiards guy to hit the balls is really fucking stupid. I do like the fight with the buff guy because it doesn't waste your time and you can get right into it. Other than that, I really hope the ghosts in the last area are less tedious to deal with. Now, to be fair, I had to take a 3-week hiatus in playing this game because I moved house and then also went on a 2-week trip overseas, so I was a tiny bit preoccupied. That definitely made these ghosts more difficult than they probably would have been otherwise for me just because of that gap, but I do still think their gimmicks are less than great at an execution level. There is one great thing about this area though, and that's the search for Mario's stuff. Tons of characters tell you that he dropped his junk around the mansion, and seeing as how he's apparently locked in a painting, which as a plot point is a great subversion of how paintings have been repped in recent Mario history and really adds to the horror aspect of the game, it would be a little bit nice to pick up his stuff for him. So what all did he drop? Well, his toad says that he dropped his hat, which is not true, his glove, which is also not true, what a sloppy cunt, a letter, one of his shoes, of which the description has aged about as well as a Dan Schneider show, and a power star of all things. I love getting that power star because it's hidden in the mansion's observatory, and this place has some excellent little cutscene cues that are so relaxing to listen to. And I love the puzzle piece where you have to shoot a star into the moon in the back. It's cute. I also love how this is really the only objective that forces you to poke around in the mansion non-linearly as part of the actual main quest. I wish there were more aspects of the game that were like this. But using these items, we can have Madame Clairvoyant, this fortune teller ghost, feed us a bunch of useless info. I really enjoy her character, to be honest. She has some decently funny jokes in her dialogue, and the idea of one of these portrait ghosts actually helping you is novel and charming. So the fact that her visions tell us nothing useful, and the fact that she says she's ready to return to her painting but then fights your vacuum anyway really shafts her. The next boss triggers when we find a bunch of boos having a student body meeting, and they decide to try to get Luigi to pledge to their frat, which is no good. Apparently they just want to murder us though, which is probably one of the tamest initiations I've ever heard of. This boss fight pissed me off. I died a couple times, which normally is fine. It's more 50-50 than a lactose intolerant person's guts after eating a charcuterie board. I like getting my cheeks clapped a little bit, but it felt like a total fluke every time I made an attempt. The individual boos were either way too easy to freeze or nearly impossible to hit. The way they attack doesn't really allow you to react appropriately, so they just constantly shove you around. Plus, I kept having this issue where I would be squeezing my trigger and Luigi just wouldn't blow out ice. Just terrible. This is kind of just the capstone for what's been the weakest segment of the game so far. Annoying portrait ghosts, annoyingly obtuse traversal, and an even more annoying boss. Whatever, I'm just ready to move on. The fourth and final area kicks off with an unfortunately disappointing set piece where the mansion gets the lights zapped out of it. With all the lights off, that means ghosts can spawn literally anywhere in the mansion, and you better believe that since they can, they gonna a lot. Stop it, please, I'm begging you. Not only do you have to backtrack through the whole mansion with Luigi stopping in place to scream every couple seconds, you also have to follow a less direct path because the game literally gaslights you about how to fix the electric lights. Anyone wandering lost around the first floor found the stairs to the basement, which features a breaker room where you can't do anything. Players that remembered where the breaker is are going to get smacked in the face by having it suddenly locked, so you can go and hunt for some random ghost that wasn't in a previous room before. This section's a total poop show, and Uncle Grimly should have been optional. Fortunately, it's all uphill after this because not only is the backtracking better since the basement and third floor are explored in a more streamlined way with clear shortcuts being provided, but the rooms are all far more diverse and the portrait ghosts are tough but still fun to deal with. Holy frick, that's so crazy! I mean, there's only a few portrait ghosts left, but still, what's here is excellent. The toy soldier ghosts are really fun aesthetically. I like how Luigi says, haha, once you figure out that you need to suck their winding handle off. What are those things called? Oh, it's a crank. That doesn't even have any joke potential. That's so lame. There's these two optional ghosts that aren't challenging but are still unique characters. The little girl in the upside down room gives a freaky first impression, but kind of wets the bed in terms of putting up a fight. But making use of the aiming still makes this worth it. Then there's this little guy you have to play a minigame with before sucking him up. He's all pudgy and he doesn't have a human face, which makes his design stick out. I think he might be my favorite, so what's his actual name? Jarvis. Oh, nope, you're getting out of here. Go back to Iron Man, dumbass. Go get resurrected by your wife, dumbass. Wait, I got another one. Go be one of the least popular characters in one of the most bloated and overexposed franchises in film history, dumbass. Woof, sorry about that Freudian slip. Let's get back to my review of this classic Italian horror. The last quote-unquote normal portrait ghost is this explorer guy. He's in an icy room, which lets the ice physics play into the normal ghost hunting. This really demonstrates how all the rooms in this area are getting more wacky and all have really strong gimmicks. Room full of ice, room full of sludge, room full of armor, room full of animal pelts, phone room, toy room. You even get to go through the roof. Cause you don't know where the door is! Sure, not all of them are actually that fun. But the variety here is impressive, and paired with the actual ergonomic pathing of this area, makes it really breezy and fun to explore as the game is wrapping up and even as it keeps getting harder. Except for the boos, which are at their worst at this point. I got all 50, but because of how high their health is, there were some layouts where I had to go back and forth a gazillion times. I already mentioned that earlier though. But you know what really gets me? The fact that EGAD says nothing when you get the 50th boo. Sure, you get a big gem, so there is a reward for it, but that's pretty much like the minimum I expected. You think this fucker would be a little bit grateful that I helped him accomplish his life's work? Anyways, the final portrait ghost of them all is Van Gore, an artist ghost who created all the ghosts we've been fighting throughout the game by painting them into being. This is an okay enemy gauntlet, but I think it would have been cooler if the ghosts had been mixed and matched to make a tougher set of final ghost fights, but this is fine for what it is. After this, we can go look at all the ghosts we caught in the gallery in all their 480p Photoshop filtered glory. I know I said we'd be back here later, so you probably thought there was some big build up to this section, but to be honest, I just wanted to say I really like the character designs in this game. It's a very simple like template that they used, but it's appealing. Like, it makes the ghosts stick out from other Mario creatures, but still lets them fit into the universe. More great personality that really shines through in these character designs. It also shines through in the very iconic soundtrack. This game is fairly short, so the soundtrack isn't that beefy. I mean, sure, 64 tracks sounds like a lot, but they're mostly jingles and cutscene cues. Not that they're bad. In fact, I find some of them kind of infectious. I do find myself humming the little key-snatching ditty more than I care to admit. Actually, I hum all the jingles more than I would care to admit. A lot of like the longer, more traditional themes get built around very specific motifs. There's the main theme that everyone knows, which is hummed or whistled directly by Luigi himself. Apparently, even when he's scared, he's perfect pitch. Other memorable themes include the gallery motif, the Boo theme, the ghost catching songs for the different types of ghosts, the Toads theme, and the talking with the ghosts theme. Personally, I cannot get enough of the sound font. Like, the melodies are A1, but the instruments are perfect here. There's plenty of regular synths like a harp or a harpsichord or an organ or whatever, but then there's all sorts of crazy weird ones added for that kind of paranormal zap that really adds to the game's spooky flavor. It's what gives it this heavy sense of good atmosphere, but also helps cement it as part of the Mario universe. It's scary and whimsical all at once, matching that balance that the visuals do as well. What a great sound font. Okay, now all we have to do is open that door at the back of the basement and go rescue— wait, Luigi, your brother. Luigi, he's in the painting, he's right. Luigi! Man, King Boo does not give a shit that we're pillaging right behind him. It's actually really important to grab the treasure and then leave and save because you're gonna need it for the final boss, so you can retry it a bunch without having to waste time to keep your rank up. King Boo starts off by gloating about force-feeding the Mario Bros gullible soup, and then he says he'll turn Luigi into a painting. Not to say that I'm some genius savant of interior design, but it doesn't look like there's enough room on the wall. He sucks us into the painting and dons a giant Bowser mech. The fortune teller said that King Boo had apparently revived Bowser and treated it like some sort of big deal, which doesn't make sense when paired up with any other real Mario game. But you know, I like her, so I'll give her the benefit of the doubt and say that maybe this takes place at the end of the Mario timeline. To win the fight, you need to use these spiky balls to knock the robot head off and then suck up King Boo. And this fight sucks. Not like in the cute Luigi's Mansion vacuumy way. Like, it's just bad. His moments of vulnerability are really confusing to gauge. He has a bunch of attacks that can get you damaged multiple times in a row. In fact, there was a run through where I literally got stun locked because he refused to let up. Like I said, it is just bad. It leaves such a sour taste in your mouth, and it is a horrible note to end the game on. After winning and making an old man cry, Luigi grabs the painting and skedaddles back to the lab where Mario's put through the painting machine backwards, turning it back to normal, which is kind of clever. We end on a nice bit of slapstick comedy and a surprisingly emotional moment as well, as Luigi laughs at Mario's silliness while shedding a tear. Holy dang, you never see actions like that from these characters. It would have been nice if the brothers hugged or something, but as is, this is a decent closing cutscene. The credits are unfortunately just a bunch of slides, but the words have enough style that it's okay to look at. And it's not like this slideshow goes on for like 10 minutes like in most modern games. It's only like 3, and the music kicks ass. As its own game, Luigi's Mansion is more disappointing than I figured it would be. The core gameplay is honestly really fun, but a lot of the stuff they toss in to add variety does not really impress me. There are some excellently done things added to change stuff up, but mostly, yeah, disappointing, that's a good word for it. That being said, it is incredibly polished presentation-wise, and I think that, along with the fun and unique core gameplay, obviously, is why this game stuck in people's heads for so long. Plus, I can't praise this game enough for sticking out among all the other Mario spin-offs. spin-offs. Most of them stay pretty aesthetically similar. Mario Kart, the sports games, and the party games may have a couple places away from the status quo, but the way the characters and music are presented is pretty much exactly what you would expect. Luigi's Mansion's set to fudge with that and makes a legitimately kind of freaky experience with characters that even look out of the ordinary compared to most Mario characters. I feel like LM2 and 3 veered more towards being sillier and spooky themed, but LM1 stays fairly grounded in its horror premise. Not that the new approach is bad because it still stands out from the other spin-offs. The only other competition that Luigi's Mansion had in that regard was the RPG games, but those pretty much don't exist anymore and I want to die. So while Luigi's Mansion is wicked flawed, I'm still amazed at how many new things it tries that it does great. And as a launch title, it really showed off what the GameCube could do graphically, as well as how great its controller was. So that's pretty cool. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a phone call to make. Okay, I did the thing you wanted. Can I go back to my iconic beach now? Cool. Bruh.